Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Scott Garber. Excited to be back in the saddle on the Profluent Sports Podcast, where we are highlighting founders, innovators, investors across the sports landscape. Today, we are excited to dive into the landscape of emerging sports. And if you are not living under a rock, you know by now there are new sports popping up everywhere. Some are newer than others. And the one that we're going to focus on today has been carving out a really cool lane in the golf space. It is not a new sport. It is a worldwide sport. And it's not my story to tell. So I'm excited to bring on the founder of the World FlingGolf League, Alex Van Alen, and the commissioner, John Pruellage. Fellas, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today?
Doing great, Scott. Thanks for having us on.
Great to be here, Scott.
Oh, it's so fun. And for all of you guys that don't know, I ran into Alex at the PGA show, which was so neat. He's been a member in the Profluence community for the last few months. And it's been so exciting to get to learn about all the amazing things that they're doing with a non-traditional golf apparatus and the whole ecosystem that's been built around it. So, Alex, let's go ahead and kick things off. Start with the origin story. Who are you and where did FlingGolf come from?
No, Scott, it was great to run into you at the PGA show and love what you're doing with Profluence. You and Andrew are kicking some ass, and it's great to be part of it. FlingGolf is if you think of it in the context of snowboarding and skiing, it's a new sport that can be played, relatively new sport. It can be played alongside traditional golf on a golf course. And you play, instead of hitting one of 14 clubs, you play with one fling stick and you throw the ball. And you can really hurl it. I don't know if you can see this. This is the fling stick. And you put a golf ball in there. You just got this one stick to carry around with you. And you really hurl the ball. And you can shape every shot from tee to hole. You can do flop shot. You can do bump and run. And you putt with it. So it's really fun to get on the course with. It's easy access to a golf course. We like to say it's easy to start, a challenge to master. Because it still takes quite a lot to get the short game down, but you can play right alongside traditional golfers. So again, it's that sort of snowboarding, skiing analogy. And we've been at it for about 10 years. We've seen a lot of growth in the last 2 to 3 years, especially.
Yep.
And we've been playing on 2,000 courses now in 39 countries. So
wow. And we're going to get to that later in the conversation. And, John, as we start to talk more on the commissioner side of things and building a league around a new sport, all the excitement, but also all the challenges that come with it. But, Alex, real quick, I'm always curious. How the hell did you come up with this? Like, where did this idea come from? Was it a back of a napkin type idea? Like, what? Give us a little depth on that.
Yeah, if you go way back, I played a little bit of lacrosse in high school and played golf for my whole life. And my brothers and I would come home from lacrosse practice with our lacrosse sticks and throw golf balls around our backyard, counting strokes to hit trees or throw it over the pond, hitting a rock or whatever. And that was the origin of it, way back. But fast forward, a bunch of years, didn't really think about it. And then about 12 years ago, started thinking about, how far can I throw a golf ball? And started tinkering around with different ideas, pulling toys apart and putting things together on throwing a golf ball. And then I started to think, if I could really throw a golf ball far, I could get out on a golf course and play the sport. And so I sort of ramped up my efforts a little bit, built prototypes out, to be able to throw 200 yards. And one of the key things was, I don't know if you're familiar with highlight, and you're down in Florida.
Of course.
So highlight was a big step forward. I got a highlight basket and started throwing golf balls out of that. And I was like, holy shit, you can really power these things out. They fly out. I mean, highlight, they're throwing the ball like 200 miles an hour.
Sidebar, if no one's ever seen highlight, go check it out. I mean, it is like a lethal sport. It is wild to watch what those guys do. Yeah, they throw the ball real. So basically what I ended up with, in essence, is a mini highlight basket on the end of a stick. So it looks like a golf club with a highlight basket at the end. And that really, really accelerates. So it's not just popping the ball 100 yards down the middle of the fairway. It's like we got guys throwing it 240 yards, and shaping their shots accurately. Wow.
But then using the same stick to putt with and to do flop shots with and chipping and everything. So
I tell you what, I might have to pick this up, Alex, because I can't hit a driver 240 yards and shape it. That thing's spraying all over the place.
You could haul it out there. You know what? That's not to get too far ahead, but that's sort of our customer, or those people who are frustrated with golf or haven't been out to a golf course, have been intimidated by getting out to a golf course. But that's it's interesting, the whole trajectory, because I really didn't start it thinking there was any issues with golf courses or anything like that. But I realized this is back in 2015 or so, that golf courses were struggling at that point. This is pre-pandemic. They were closing about 200, 250 courses a year were closing in the U.S. So they were looking for that, that extra revenue. How do we get more people onto the course? So we really started working with a lot of golf courses, and it's just been growing ever since.
So let's talk about sort of like the build up to the league that now John is, starting to oversee, because I imagine there has to be this progression of education on it. Then there's a recreational side. And then I imagine you can start to form a league, but walk the listeners through like what that build up has been like. How do you gain traction and even let people know that this is available?
Yeah, I'll let John talk more about the league, but basically started with the equipment, of course, and then getting that out, work with golf courses to get that out, and then started growing the community more and more, but trying to work with golf courses to help them promote it as well. But then that really sort of took a turn. We got on Shark Tank, and we knew we were going to have to build a league at some point. We got on Shark Tank. That helped us grow our player community, which was real key for the whole effort. Just the credibility, the awareness really boomed after that.
Did you get a deal?
Well, we got a deal on the show.
Yeah. The truth comes out now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good little secret of Shark Tank. But it's been very, very good for us. Obviously, the awareness is incredible. And then we got past that, and then very quickly, actually, ESPN called us and said, "Hey, if you're putting a tournament together, we'd love to partner with you on that." So it's really, the equipment, growing the very casual community, and then realizing that we needed to support our players and really own the sport by creating a league. And I'll let John jump into that. He's really been running with the league.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think another thing is I partnered with Alex in sort of mid 2018, but a lot of the focus early on for him at the beginning was really a lot of outreach to golf courses, because that is still the number one question we get asked is like, can you really play this on a golf course?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the work that had to be done early on was, with golf courses, just to get them comfortable with it. Sold actually a lot of FlingSticks to these golf courses. The problem is you always had this sort of, you had two sides of the coin, this sort of chicken and egg kind of thing, which is like, you can, sell all these FlingSticks to golf courses, but if there's no one that knows about the sport and is going to actually play it, then what are they, they're going to have to promote it themselves. And that's actually one of the big learning lessons, was that's not something they excel at, because they've never had to do that. They've never had to actually promote their sport. It's more of a, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. So it's just really not in a golf course's DNA.
Sure.
So I think we sort of realized in, the 2019 timeframe that we've really got to sort of shift to, we've done a great job of laying the groundwork with golf courses, and there's a lot of FlingSticks out there, as well as like general, like a lot of people in the industry know about us and there's familiarity. So, but then it's really, we've got to pivot this to more what we always wanted to be, which is a player focused, consumer products company, as well as, eventually the sport and the league. So we just need that. Then the focus really shifted to, we still sell to golf courses. We still have relationships with golf courses, and that's all great. But the real focus was on the player. And that really, like Alex said, that sort of shifted right around the time that we got on Shark Tank, and then really shifted our focus.
Really cool. Now, John, let me ask you this, and it'll sort of set the foundation, to go deeper into the league, right? But when we think about like the PGA, are you guys structuring this where you're developing a system of junior fling golfers into a pro system, and then you have like, professionals that compete? Or how do you guys think about developing talent in a new sport and then showcasing it in a league format?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think, if you've taken a step back, like what you just sort of laid out is probably the most methodical way to go about it. But I think we've oftentimes, you look at sports, and even a good example is like pickleball. Most people are like, pickleball, it's been around for like 5 or 10 years. No, it's been around for 50 years. And it just, a lot of sports just take a really long time to grow. And to be honest, like, I don't want to wait 50 years to get to where, pickleball is right now. And I know Alex feels the same way. So sometimes you've got to do things almost in reverse order a little bit, in backfill. And so we sort of took a different approach, was it was more of like, okay, where are the players? Where is the talent? And then, you could try to grow, kids into the sport. That's just going to take a long time. So I think we focused more on, the sort of 25 to 45-year-old, and really probably more like 35 to 50-year-old is where we have the most players playing competitively right now. But what we've been doing really just in the last, 6 months to a year is working on more sort of youth development kind of stuff, because the sustainability of the sport is going to be with kids. And eventually the talent level is certainly going to be in that sort of, 25 to 35-year-old range. But you need to get kids playing early. Part of the problem, though, is like with kids and youth development is like that is it takes a lot of resources and a lot of manpower to really, address that in a significant way. So which is why we're sort of shifting that focus right now. But
Scott, if you think about it, we really, our job is to support our player community because they're our driving force, right? So we've created this platform to support them in every way and have them have success in every way. And that's not just our pro, getting sponsorships to be able to play and tour and go on the tour, but that's like the disabled vet being able to get out on the course for the first time in 10 years since his injury and play with his buddies, or it's the mom or dad who are bringing their kid out to play. They can play golf, kid can play fling golf, they can get out on the course for the first time, no stress, and the kid wants to be out there having fun. So whatever we can do to support our players, that's good for us too, because they're the ones going out and we call it liberating courses. They're going all over the place and growing the game that way. So that's really our focus. Yeah.
And, sitting on this side of the fence, we get to see so much and a really cool bird's eye view of what's going on in sport. And yes, there is this commercial competitive side that is really getting spotlighted. But I think the macro trend is just stay active, right? Like, and whether that is walking the golf course or playing fling golf or, whatever that may be, it's how do we continue to stretch this sporting ecosystem to promote a healthier lifestyle? And, Alex, some of the earlier conversations that we had were all around like, hey, we just want to create a community of folks that promotes a healthier lifestyle, walking the courses. And you get to know people and nature. You gain really different perspectives when you get to go ahead and experience those things. So holistically, I love what you're doing. Now, let's go in. So I'm going to take the conversation in a couple different directions, but I want to start on the education side, right? So like if I'm a golfer and I didn't know about Fling Golf until Profluence, right? So now are you guys working with traditional golf brands to try and, work through the endemics? Are you carving out your own lane? How do you educate people that this sport exists?
Yeah, again, a lot of it drives back to our players and word of mouth, but certainly we've also, obviously some social media thrown in there, but we've also had the very good fortune of being on ESPN 3 times now. We're going to do it again this year. That grows a lot of the awareness of it. And then, the biggest question we get is, as John was saying, can you play this on the golf course? That's been answered, right? We've been on 2,000 golf courses. It's probably quite a bit more than that, actually. And very, very, very few, I can't even pull one out of my head now that, won't let us play.
Wow.
So that question's been answered. So that allows the game to grow very rapidly. That's why it's 39 countries. Guy went over and played at the old course in St. Andrews. One of our players played over there last fall. So it's growing rapidly that way. And it's down to that sort of grassroots. Grassroots is where we focus, but certainly we use social media, ESPN, get the word out.
So I'm going to get a little nerdy here real quick for everyone that's not a golfer. There's a handicap system, right? And so now, because not all golfers are created equal, but we want to be able to go ahead and start to level the playing field. So are all fling golfers created equal, or how do you guys address a novice from an expert to make that experience competitive as the community grows?
Yeah, I mean, and we're in the process of, and it will be this year that we roll out our sort of handicap system, which is, it'll be, very similar to the golf one, just with a couple little twists to it. Right now, for our tournaments, we don't handicap them, but I think we've seen even in the, essentially 2 years we've been, coming up on 3 years that we've been running the, competitive tournaments, which really were open. but it's starting to stratify. And you still have people that are not novices, but definitely not at the sort of pro level that are competing in some of these tournaments. And we're at the point now where we're probably going to need to have a lower level of competition that is probably a handicap tournament. And so we need some way to start, separating the top players from those that are just, picking up the game, as well as just for players to, sort of gauge themselves. Right now, we don't do that at tournaments. It's basically, the best players going to, win in their respective division. But for the long-term growth of it, it's really, and once again, it's a sort of backfill concept is we've done a lot of things in sort of reverse order in a sense where like most sports are sort of like, yeah, you get a bunch of people playing and then eventually it bubbles up to sort of you organize it at the top for the most competitive league. We sort of started at the top and now we need to backfill with less competitive leagues as we grow the sport because it's that sort of, we want all sort of, levels of competition for the sport. And there's definitely demand for it. And it's funny because we started out with, it was men, and then we added the women's division shortly after that. And then we quickly got to the point where you had people in their, 50s that were sort of like, I can't compete with the young guys. So now we have a master's division for 55 and older.
Very cool.
And that's just in a really short time. But it's going to completely, we're going to eventually have to have sort of multiple tours and things like that, as well as just more regional and local competitions.
No, it's super interesting, right? And I think as you have this macro community and then you create these buckets of competition, it gives everyone a place where they can feel. And I, as a golfer, the first question you ask is, what's your handicap, right? Right. So it almost feels like you belong to something that is a little bit more exclusive, like, hey, I speak the lingo there. So I was just curious on that front. A less nerdy, but genuine question here. We're watching golf go through a transformation. Before it used to be trousers and a polo shirt. Now we're watching all kinds of really cool expression, from the types of leather club heads all the way to the Malbons and the East Side Golfs on the clothing side. What's the attire for FlingGolf? Like, where, what do you see your guys wearing? Is it more casual? Is it more country club? What does that typically look like?
Definitely not country club.
It's definitely not country club. But it's respectful, right. And a lot of it's golfish attire, but more on that edge of golf attire.
Yep,
very cool.
Our community, I would say, leans a little more blue collar than traditional golf.
Okay,
they're out there to have a good time, not spend thousands of dollars on lessons before they jump out there. So we were wearing hoodies on the course before. Who was it? Jason Day or one of those guys?
Jason.
Wearing a hoodie, So now they're all wearing hoodies. But we were doing that a long time ago.
Jason was out there in the heather gray jumpsuit, the sweatsuit. He was looking good out there.
Good.
I was going to say, he looked comfortable, and I think that's half the battle when you're playing these sports, right? So,
exactly. But I think it is important to say that we are, when we have these tournaments, just super respectful of the course, and we're not over the top on attire, but it is respectful, and the pros and managers are all love having us come because we're, it's a respectful group, but they're having fun too.
Very cool.
And there's definitely one of our top players, he wears jeans and, nice jeans, but he wears jeans literally any temperature. Like we had a tournament and it was about 108 out in San Diego last summer and he's wearing jeans. So
God bless him.
He's committed to it.
That's a different kind of dedication there. I'm in Florida. I could think most of the months I'm not wearing jeans to play FlingGolf down here. So no, this is really cool. And one more question in this vein, and then we're going to dive in. I want to dive into the business side of this and like how you guys make money, how it scales. But betting has become such a prominent engagement on the golf course for fans of the league. Is there a betting component to FlingGolf? Do you see friendly wagers, or is that part of the culture of what you guys have curated, or do you see that becoming part of it as it continues to go more commercial?
Yeah, it's right now there really isn't, certainly not to our competitive side of things at our tournaments. Do I see it, in the future? Absolutely, because I think it's one of those things that it's such a culture of golf, certainly for the casual play of golf, that is going to translate into FlingGolf. And I know that some of our players do bet when they're playing casually. It's just hasn't been sort of instituted into tournaments. And I think it gets there when you have enough people that are just a fan of the sport. I think that's when you start getting this sort of betting on tournaments, but we're not quite there yet. But I think it's a matter of time. And I think rolling out the handicap system also really then helps with betting for casual players, because once you throw a handicap in the equation, then the next thing people are going to do is start betting against each other.
I was going to say, if I go out there and I put some money on the line and watch a guy throw the golf ball 250 yards, I'm going to be pretty pissed. Like I feel like I just lost my money.
Bridging the gap between, because golfers and fling golfers, it's completely seamless and they can play together. But then bridging the gap for gambling purposes may be hell it'll work, because I think it's going to get golfers that push back a little bit.
100%. All right, cool. So let's dive into the nuts and bolts of it. This is where the conversation gets fun. So now we understand sort of the origin story, how people are participating, and you guys are growing the game. We're going to put our business hats on here, right? So now as we start to think about growing FlingGolf, I'll just sort of set the stage, Alex, as we talk. There's the hardware component where now you guys have the sticks that you're manufacturing and selling, and then you have the business of growing a league. And so I want to start on the league side, and then we'll sort of work our way back into the equipment. But, as we look at some of the new leagues coming out, specifically in golf, right, we're watching a TGL where they're leveraging a team component and some technology to be able to go ahead and roll this out. Talk to us about the formation of this league. How do you guys, generate revenue? What do the players earn? How do the media deals start to line up? So if you could start to break down sort of the framework, that'd be super helpful to understand what you guys have built.
Sure. From a sort of business component or understanding for the league, right now we're at a stage where it's a combination of, it's pretty similar to how sort of golf tournaments work, with a lot of different components in terms of like we've started instituting sort of team components and pulling from a bunch of different models. But right now, most of the revenue is either from tournament registration fees or sponsorships. That then fuels the expenses as well as then the prize pool. I think we wanted to get this team component, which we rolled out last year. We've been doing doubles competitions really since almost the beginning, but then having these larger teams as sort of an overlay competition on top of our individual tournaments was important. We rolled it out last year because longer term, sort of this franchise model with these, what we call them FlingGolf clubs, I think is going to be really important. And we had thought about doing that, even before we'd had our first tournament. And we saw them Liv do it, and we were thinking that was a great way to do it. And just having golf has never had this sort of team component. There's just something about people, certainly for fans of the game, rallying behind a team. And there's just so many more business opportunities when you've got a team and logos and organize around these clubs that make it really interesting. We're sort of growing into that model because we are. You're naturally an individual sport. So you've got to get that individual sport in a place where then you can layer a team club component on top of it.
It's interesting. I've seen there's so many of our players really love the team format. I mean, they work hard on the individual format. They really enjoy the team format when they're playing in the doubles. That was pretty cool to see.
No, it's neat, right? And I think that we're seeing that trend more and more, not only from, I think, a more lucrative business model when you're able to go ahead and create this IP and now tie it to something bigger than just an individual. But like you said, now I want to participate in something that's bigger than me as an athlete, right? And so, I mean, just going back to the golf side, I think Ryder Cup is one of the coolest events in sports, right? And I mean, you guys, as I'm listening to you tell the story, it's being played in 39 different countries. We have access to 2,000 different courses. And so I'm starting to see not only a team component, but potentially like an international component where you can go ahead and start to get all of this, the juices flowing and a lot of cool competition. So if I'm a fling golfer right now on the professional side, what does the typical purse look like? What's the format of the tournaments? Sort of walk us through like a day in the life of a professional fling golf.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, very young. So nobody's quitting their day job. And I think it's one of those things where it's like you don't really compare it to professional golf right now. Certainly not at the PGA level. Like those
Sure.
courses are insane, or live for that matter. It's probably a better analogy, and we're not quite at that level yet. But it's something more like disc golf, where your prize pools aren't, they're sort of, at the top, they're going to be sort of single digit thousands, and sort of down from there. So all of our players, like I said, no one's quitting their day job. It is one of those things where and this is where the dedication, the passion of our best players is really incredible, because they're using, as we announced sort of tournaments, and we've had the last couple of years, we've had 5 big national tournaments, and now we're moving to, up to sort of 9 or 10 this year. And not that everyone's going to make every tournament, but, they're really, it's all about they're dedicating almost all their sort of vacation time and as much time as they can take off work. And, it's all they're sort of scheduling their life around, FlingGolf. So, and we sort of try to push the envelope every year as far as we can push it with our existing player base. And it's sort of the appetite's there, but there's a lot of practical life considerations for people. Yeah, although it's interesting you mentioned Ryder Cup, because that was one of the things we did last year, which we are the guy that is Paul Barron, who's growing the game for us in the UK. We started an international sort of Ryder Cup format competition last June. We had the first ever, it's called the Britain's Cup. And very cool. We had a US team that went over and played a UK team. We're going to be doing it again this summer and growing the size of the team. And he's really on the forefront of growing in the UK and beyond in Europe. And those kinds of things are, for our player base, really sort of, that's where they're lucky enough to qualify for Team USA. They're gonna drop everything and schedule around that. Even though that one, there's literally no money on the line for that. It's all the sort of honor for playing for your country. So I think right now, for your typical players, you're not in it necessarily. You've got to see the vision, but you're not in it because you're making a ton of money on this, because you've got real travel expenses, et cetera. And some of our players are able to get sponsorship money, and that's only going to grow. But that's a really important component of it, because it's not all going to be prize money right now, until we've got sponsors, both really big sort of league-wide sponsors as well as individual player sponsors.
Makes total sense. No, it's really neat to watch the evolution of it. I mean, Alex, this has to be absolutely humbling, from whipping the golf ball around in the backyard to now we're talking about Ryder Cup and representing the U.S. in FlingGolf. I mean, just that founder's journey is always so intriguing to me. Real quick, I want to touch on this side, because this is the down and dirty part of it, right? It's expensive, right? You guys are producing and manufacturing the sticks. You guys are spinning up a gin system or a handicap system. So building the technology and then building a league. How do you find balance as the founder of this, Alex, to raise capital and, continue to tell the story to the investment side, while also giving the right attention to growing the game and supporting the community?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Scott. And we're actually considering taking on some investments soon, because we've really built out sort of 3 pillars of the sport: the equipment, the league, and now we're building out the association with the handicap system. And we've got those 3 foundations built, and now it's ready to put some capital behind it, just because we've got we've got what we need to sort of take off from here. So, but yeah, it's been a grind. Interesting. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and I was saying that it seems like just yesterday we started, but also seems like a lifetime ago. So
that's the way it works.
It's a short period of time when you're considering it's growing a sport, and we really are growing it for the centuries. I mean, we want this to be a sport's played in 100 years. We're not selling a backyard game or anything. So we've really put a lot of effort into that, the grassroots, and making sure the foundation is stable for that.
No, it's really cool. And those 3 pillars, I believe, start to encapsulate what you need, the ingredients to be able to go ahead and raise capital. And, I think sports, we'll talk about this, over the next short run, as hey, FlingGolf seems like an overnight success, but it was really 12 years of, just trudging along to get to this point. And, I just think it's always neat when we can get sort of the, this perspective, this conversation of what that build has actually been like. Alex, coming back to you for a couple more questions as we turn the corner and come home. What's been the biggest learning lesson over this decade plus run of building FlingGolf that you've taken away from the journey?
Yeah, I think specifically early on, I really thought, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs go in with like rosy glasses, right? That things are going to work out real quick. And I thought that the golf courses were going to see this and be like, yeah, we're going to run with this, And I didn't know much about the golf industry, the golf course industry, to be honest, when I started. And some have, and some have done very well with it. I mean, there are courses that are getting 2,000 or 3,000 extra rounds a year, just gravy, and that's just filling in empty times. And it really takes that specific manager, PGA pro, who's going to run with it, champion it, and make it happen. But there weren't that many of them in the beginning. I thought they were going to basically do my marketing for me. So that didn't turn out. That took a little while to get over that. And like, okay, well, we really need to grow the player base. And that was interesting, is that they basically said to me, like, look, we love this. If you bring the players, we'll let them play. And that was, so we had to change our, we talked about a little bit before, change our focus. Like, we always knew we were going to have to get the players, but we knew we really needed to now, and that was going to be our job to get the players, and which is way, way better, right? We know the community. We know so many of our players, and they know us, and it's part of the community. They really feel it. So it was well worth the transition. And that was probably year 3 or 4 that we started to make that transition. So that was probably the biggest learning moment for me.
How cool. And I think if you look at where society's at post-pandemic, again, this was you guys were building this way before it, but I think we yearn to be a part of something bigger than us. And I think that there's the propensity for the new normal is higher than ever, right? And so I think change is one of the hardest things that we go through as humans, but we've lowered that barrier and we have a wider aperture now to try new things, which I have to believe there's a correlation between the rise of FlingGolf and other emerging sports and the sort of shakeup of the normal, with a post-COVID environment. But you guys keep referencing this community, and at Profluence, we believe that, that is the way of the future. We're more connected via social than ever before, but somehow we feel more disconnected. And so when we can find these cool binding agents, it's our job to go ahead and give you the platform to tell the story. So John, coming over to you, last thoughts for our listeners. What should we be on the lookout for this year from a league level?
I think for us, it's right now it's growth in terms of the number of tournaments, as well as we're really trying to, we've gone from 5 tournaments to we're going to have at least, it looks like 10 to 11 sort of tournaments. Some are going to be smaller tournaments. We hope to add a few even smaller tournaments because we really just want more opportunities for people to compete. The other thing is, we're certainly putting money now into more sort of content distribution, trying to film more of our tournaments to really get that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's you do so much marketing, you do so much to you can, spend a lifetime of money chasing awareness, especially for something that you're growing from nothing. And it's a tough slog, but right now still with sports, nothing beats TV. And nothing beats, and especially for our sport where it's video is everything. If you just describe to someone what it is without them actually seeing it, sometimes they don't get the full picture. But when they actually, or it just seems sort of gimmicky. When they actually see it up close, or at least on TV, the tournaments that we've had on ESPN and some regional sports nets, I think it puts it in a whole new light. And I think you see that it's, that this thing's going to have legs. And like Alex said earlier, it's one of the selling points, I think, from an equipment standpoint, getting people into the sport, is it's really easy to get started. And you can get people with a basic throwdown in, 10 to 15 minutes. But like golf, it comes down to short game and persistence. And there's a whole aspect of FlingGolf that, that is similar to golf, but also very different from golf in the sense that, you've got a gauge, you're using one FlingStick for every shot. Yeah. So there's a lot of sort of persistence and patience that goes into that, and a lot of training for our, to be the best at the game. You've really got to put a lot of work into it. So I think having more, exposure to people of the most competitive side of the game, I think, is important. So you're going to see a lot of that from a league perspective, because for us, that's really content creation is really, and then distribution of that is really the best way we can spend our money in terms of growth.
I love it. No, super exciting. You know, Alex, I'm going to bring it home here. So for everyone that's listening that didn't know about FlingGolf before this interview, and they want to go get into the game and join the community, how do they do it, Alex? Where do they go next? Where do you point them?
Yeah, I mean, FlingGolf.com, certainly our website. That's where we sell most of our equipment through e-commerce. Go to our FlingGolf YouTube channel and take a look at all the videos. Get on all the social media. It's all at FlingGolf. And yeah, become part of the community. It's self-proclaimed the best community in sports. That's what they say. So,
hey, I love it. Well, you converted me. So I'm going to be getting a FlingGolf stick when we get off of this interview and join the community. And I encourage everybody that is looking to stay active and looking to go ahead and find reasons to connect with people, whether that's your kids, whether that's with other folks that are sort of pioneering the new frontier of sports. Go check out FlingGolf. Go buy yourself a stick and be a part of the next movement. Alex, John, gentlemen, thank you guys first and foremost for what you're doing for the sporting ecosystem. It's so exciting to see your success, and we wish you nothing but continued success as it grows. And thank you guys for being awesome humans and being pillars of the sporting community. So this has been a really fun conversation. And if you guys like this conversation, Profluence is a central hub for founders, investors, advisors across the whole industry. There's 650 of us and growing. Feel free to give us a check out as well and meet awesome folks like John and Alex. Gentlemen, thank you guys so much again for tuning in or for hopping on, and we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Scott. Love the conversation. Love what you guys are doing.
Awesome to be with you.
See you guys.
All right.